Hi, and welcome to your short mini bonus lesson on 5 little known facts about food addiction, presented by Sarah Devine, the educator in the diploma and weight loss course. So let's get right into it today. So I want to start off by first asking, what is food addiction? So let's have a look. Well, brain imaging has helped prove that we are indeed addicted to foods. So it is no longer a theory. It has been proven that we can develop a food addiction. Now, what foods are we referring to? Well, I'm not talking about broccoli or apples, okay? I'm talking about hyper palatable foods. Those are the foods that are not found in nature. So our cupcakes, our donuts, our junk foods. All right, the list goes on and on. Soda would also be one of them. So what is the common denominator found in these foods? Well, they have high levels of fats, sugars, and salt. And the combination of these three ingredients makes them hyper palatable. Very addicting. And for many people, they lose that ability to resist these hyper palatable foods, or they may be unaware that they're addicted. And that's because these foods activate the rewards and pleasure centers of the brain, the same way cocaine and heroin do. So many people may not be aware that they're addicted to sugar or junk food, thinking that 1 or 2 or 3 treats a day is the norm. However, it may be a sign of food addiction if they cannot go a day without their sweet or without their source of junk food. Now, why do we continue to eat even if we're full? So that often occurs with those who are addicted to food. They are satiated, they are full, they may even be full to the point where they're uncomfortable, but they still continue to eat. And that's because the reward signals that are activated in the brain override the signals of fullness and satiety. So the pleasure we receive from eating these hyper palatable foods are so overwhelming that we ignore the signals of fullness and satiety to continue to receive this pleasure. Now, what's interesting is that people who show signs of food addiction can also develop a sort of tolerance to the food. They eat more and more only to find that the food satisfies them less and less. So, what does this mean? So, just like a drug addict, with a long period of time, the food is not enough. So, the same portion of food is no longer enough to satisfy the addiction or the craving. So, what is the result of this? The person needs to eat more of the food in higher amounts or in more frequent episodes in order to fulfill that satisfaction, that craving, or that food addiction. As with many other addictions, there is not necessarily a blood test to diagnose food addiction. So it's based on behavioral symptoms and it's usually diagnosed with a questionnaire. So researchers at Yale's University Rudd Center for Food Science and Policy, they developed a questionnaire to identify people with food addiction. So here are a sample of questions that can help determine if someone does indeed have food addiction. Do they eat more than they initially planned to? Or do they eat despite not being hungry at all? Perhaps eating out of boredom, perhaps eating because the food is there, it is present. Do they eat until they feel ill, until they feel physically sick? Do they go out of their way to obtain certain food? So if they are craving a certain food, let's say a donut, and it is not in near access to them, will they do what it takes to get said donut? Will they go out of their way in their car over to the nearest donut shop just to fulfill that craving? These might be signs of a food addiction. And the last thing I want to mention here is the unwanted psychological effects of food addiction. So, food addiction can often lead to depression, low self esteem, panic attacks, and increased anxiety. So it's not only the physical factors, but there's also unwanted psychological factors of food addiction. So if you think you may be addicted to food, or you may know someone who's addicted to food, it definitely is beneficial to get checked and see if there is indeed an addiction. Thank you.